Captain Paul here from TSB, getting hot takes and cold truths, and let's get into it. Just full disclaimer, this will be the last video I make on this subject. I don't want you guys to continually come up this channel. If anything further comes along, I'll take it to my personal channel and we can have a discussion there. So let's kind of get right into it. So I was brought forth information by LG that they did indeed report the sexual predator Tanner Decker to their population. And I'm one of these people that firmly believes that if you're going to make a public statement, right, and you're going to stand by that, if new information comes to light and you do indeed to be either incorrect or I would say not have full information available, you needed to be a man and kind of own up to it. So this is what I'll do. I'm going to share a screenshot from Brody, and because I can't go on the website for obvious reasons, kind of sharing, I'm going to read this. So on January 14th, 2022 is when they posted in a subsection on their website in the ESHL, which is the Esports League, that Tanner Decker was banned for being a child sex offender. While editing this video, it did kind of come to me very apparently when someone pointed out to me that if you just say hundreds and you say thousands, it doesn't necessarily kind of describe how many people were really not informed on this. So I kind of went around, did the math, went through all the leagues. I was shared screenshots so I could actually get what the numbers of last season and summer season were. Now, mind you, summer season for LG is generally smaller, so these numbers are actually on the smaller side than what they usually would be. For Xbox last season, it was 2,732 players in their main league. In the main league on the PSN side, it was 3,023 players. Total players in LG, 5,755. The esports within that particular forum where that post was created was only 576 people. The percentage of players in the forum into the totality of the whole website is only a mere 10%. Even if you want to exclude the PSN side, because they also should be informed, the whole LG, as I've always said, should be informed. That would probably still only bump it up to about, what, 20%, if maybe a little bit higher. That is just not enough with a case that severe. I wanted to kind of put it out here in writing, make sure I kind of get my point across. LG did announce it, but kind of me even looking back at these numbers and the percentage of people that would even see this, and to be quite frankly, the number of people that even use the ESHL forums is far smaller. Wouldn't it be in the hundreds? It's just not enough. Only essentially allowing a possible 10 to 20% of your player base to know of a predator status on the website. There needs to be far better transparency. I will say to wrap up this section of the video is this. They announced it, but only to a very small minority. You need to make sure something like this, something as grave as this, is completely reported to the entire league. We need to do better for our children. Now, this is something that is kind of an auxiliary, kind of an offshoot, like it's one of their icons, one of their leagues. So to be fair to LeagueGaming, and I will say this, they did disclose that Tanner Decker was a child sex offender. But I am going to be very clear here. The way in which they kind of announced that doesn't makes sense. Tanner Decker wasn't necessarily really an esports player. You know, they even had the PTP within that esports thing. What doesn't make sense within this whole situation is in the league transparency thread, which like all leagues of players, not just the high-end esports player, but every single person on the website, right when you click on your league, it's there right in your face, allows you to kind of see it, right? So Tristan McDonald, this is where I say this kind of doesn't add up to me, is why if you post PTP you didn't post Tanner Decker in your main general forum, right? Because your esports, there's not going to be as many players accessible to that, right? That's kind of a high niche of higher end skill type players, whereas your CHL is your biggest league where you're going to have thousands of people see this information compared to maybe hundreds on your esports. Like your main player base will have far more accessibility. So, but I will apologize to Trisk and Brody that they did indeed do it publicly. But I will kind of push back on this. They didn't do it in the best way. They didn't publicly announce it to the whole league in their transparency thread. You know, one of the things in the messaging that Brody says is, well, here is what we do to kind of show further league operation. This is where they kind of, you know, we're going to be going further along, which is all well and good. He says the transparency thread is dead in a way. But that didn't really add up with an explanation, because if Tanner Decker was banned in January 14th of 2022 off the website, permanently banned for those offenses, right? I would buy it if you didn't have any post after said date on your transparency thread regarding any bans. But that's not really the case. You had a post in May 30th of 2022, and then obviously you had that edition of announcing Tanner's status, I think about a week ago or a few days ago, right? So I think the biggest thing going forward here for LG is you need to be a little bit more consistent, and kind of have a clear, like, here's the bans, here's for the exact reasonings, this is why this said player was banned. And the reason why I think an offense like that needs to be shared in a greater and bigger form than just an offshoot is because that is a very serious offense. I'm not saying that minors don't play your esports, obviously they do, but you have far more minors than your CHL, your AHL, right? You have far more younger kids that play those leagues, right? They're going to be more accessible to that, so they have that information out. But like I said, I am a man of integrity, and when new information is brought to light, I'm going to bring that forth, and I'm not going to hide about it, right? Just like in a video with the Google Drive, I'll obviously share all this information of the conversation me and Brody, just for transparency's sake, so people don't think I'm hiding anything. But I mean, I do think LG did still fail the community at large, and that is not to say that Tris and Brody are bad people, right? I take this offense of child sex abuse very, very seriously, because the ramifications aren't just, they are in that moment, but they also can last for the rest of someone's lifetime. So I really do view, with those type of people, they should have no exposure to kids in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, for me, you got to make that a little bit better, I would say, public announcement than just kind of having it in your ESHL, where I feel like that's not where your core player base is. That's where your elite level players are, where your most exposure you're going to see is in your CHL, your AHL. And, you know, this isn't attacking you as people, Brody and Tris. I will say, though, it did look a kind of way when you removed me off the website for having my particular comments, because you didn't like the backlash. I still think you could have handled the situation far better than it was. But, you know, it is what it is. You know, I just want, at the end of the day, I just want kids to have a safe place to play a video game, man. Like, I don't want childs manipulating a system so that, or I should say, predators manipulating a system so they can really affect these kids. And that's, you know, I mean, we see it on the news. We see it in offshoot cases like that where things can get pretty ugly pretty quick. And I know there might be even a sect of this audience that don't understand, like, oh, well, it's online, nothing can happen. But these predators will find ways to kind of have interaction with these minors and kind of entice them to have, you know, actual face-to-face interactions that can kind of turn, at the very worst, at the very best abusive, at the very worst, even lethal. But again, Brody McDonald, I guess you guys did disclose it. I don't think in the best way possible, but I felt like I needed to make this video for full transparency's sake. Because if they did indeed share it, not necessarily in the best prudent way, I have to acknowledge that. So this is Captain Paul from TSP, King of Hot Takes, Cold Truce, and just hopefully from now on, when there is a predator within any community, we just announce it so we can protect not just our own six leagues, but every league involved in the NHL community. See you in the next one.